Welcome into a brand new edition of the 06010 ESPN Communications podcast. I'm the host, Alex Feuz, and we have a very special show for you today. Leah Hextall, NHL play-by-play broadcaster and reporter for ESPN, joining the show today. Leah, you are a trailblazer in the industry. What does it mean to you as you look back on your career to still continue being an inspiration to many people in this industry?
Well, first of all, thank you for that, Alex. I don't often think of myself as a trailblazer or an inspiration, but the trailblazer word does get associated a lot with my name, which I am very proud of. I'm very proud of it because it wasn't an easy road to get there. It took a lot of sacrifice, and it's still to this day. It's not an easy space to take up, and it can sometimes be quite lonely because when you're a trailblazer, as Doc Emmerich said to me, it's a lonely place to be because there's not a lot of people to discuss it with, because for a while I was in a class of one calling the NHL as a female. And I think what it means to me most is that since that time, since I started calling in the National Hockey League, we have seen other women get to call NHL games. We've seen Jamie Hirsch at the NHL Network call a few games. We just saw here in Canada, Kenzie Lalonde, who I've known for many years, get her first crack at it, calling an Ottawa Senators game for TSN. So that to me is the important part of being a trailblazer, because it's progress. And we no longer have to speak about it being a first because it's been done. So if I can take anything away from it, that's what I take. Creating opportunities for other women and those who traditionally haven't been represented in this place, and having that opportunity for them now because it's been done before. Few doors are open, and they're going to continue to open to those who choose to work for it.
You mentioned that it does take sacrifice in this business. When did you realize, when you were looking to get into this, that it would take sacrifice?
Within the play-by-play realm?
Sure.
Well, the entire industry, as you know, it takes sacrifice. It's often moving to many different locations, not staying in the same place as you try to get to bigger networks. And I have moved more times than I can count. I have had to end relationships because I am moving to a new market for that opportunity. But I wouldn't trade it in for the world because of how much I love what I do. And I feel very fortunate for what I do. But it has been worked for. And that's a key. It always seems in our business that things happen overnight because somebody shows up and everybody thinks, oh, here they are on ESPN. But before I joined ESPN, it was 20 years. And it was also in that time working for Hockey Night in Canada, which was my dream job, getting laid off after 2 years into that role due to economics, not being able to get a job in the industry, even though I auditioned and interviewed for every hockey job I could, and I kept getting passed over. So going into a completely different career in politics, something that I knew nothing about, but I ended up having quite a bit of success because of my ability to communicate. But then going, oh, but my love is broadcast. Politics isn't my love. Broadcast is my love. So what do? Got strategic. Where can I be a class of one? Play-by-play. And that was me spending my weekends, working my political job all week, on the weekends, going to American Hockey League games locally here in Winnipeg, and just sitting in the stands, recording myself calling a game. You can imagine the looks I got. Who's this crazy lady sitting in the stands calling? But that was the repetition I needed to get some confidence and to own some skills. And then I went back to the gentleman who laid me off at Sportsnet and said, I'd like a chance calling the Canadian Women's Hockey League. And that's how it started. But then ascending up, always working that second job in politics, and then finally getting my opportunity with ESPN when they got the NHL rights to be not only a play-by-play, but also a rinkside reporter.
In that 2 year span after you were laid off, why didn't you give up?
Because I loved it. It's as simple as that. And I know that might sound corny to people, but I truly am doing what I believe I was born to do. I love to present. I was that kid that I played athletics my entire life. Didn't play hockey, by the way. It's one key thing. Women's hockey didn't even really exist when I was a kid. And I grew up in a hockey family, though. So I was always around the sport and fell in love with it. But I played every other sport you can imagine. And then in addition to that, I was always the kid who was in plays. I loved drama. I loved musicals. I was the kid who entered public speaking competitions. I knew as soon as I got an assignment that was a speech, no matter what it was on, I was going to get an A. So I married those two together. They're just two things that I've always had within me. So there was no giving up because I loved what I did. In addition to that, Alex, No one got to tell me how my story was going to end. I got laid off. I did not choose to leave broadcasting. And that is something that has stuck with me. And as I get older and into my career, it is something that I focus on. I got a few things left on the old bingo card that I still want to achieve, but it's very important to me to be able to call my own shots now. And as I get more credibility and work for more networks and elevate my status, you get more chances to do that. So I want to be the one who says when my story comes to a conclusion, not someone else.
You mentioned your family. We'll get to your family later on in the interview, but you've said in the past that this isn't a job to you, it's a career. When did you have that mindset?
When I got done high school, all my aptitude tests told me I should be a lawyer. And I think that had something to do, one, with my ability to present, but I'm also pretty good at arguing. So a lot of my guidance counselors felt that that made sense for me. So I went into university, and that's what I thought my path was going to be. I hated university. I was on academic probation by the time the year was over because I didn't go. Nothing about it engaged me. I couldn't stand it. So I said to my parents, I'm going to take a break. This is not what I want to do. I have to figure it out. Thankfully, I have parents who were very supportive in that, but they were like, you're going to get a job. You're going to pay some rent. So, okay. So I was out there serving, being a beer cart girl at a golf course, which was an awesome job. I would actually still do that in my off season if somebody would hire me because it's so much fun and you get free golf usually. But then in addition to that, I was working at a bank and all these things that, once again, just like university, did not fulfill me at all and did not engage me in any way. And my parents always told me, do something you love, do something you would do for free. And that always stuck with me. And so while I was working, I thought, I don't want to spend the next 40 years of my life going to a job that I don't want to do. I want a career. I want something that engages me. And when I speak to young people, I think it's crazy we ask young people at 18 years of age to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. So while some parents may not like me saying this, I'm a big believer in taking that breath, finding out who you are, what engages you, what fuels you, and then going on and figuring it out and going to university, college, doing a trade, whatever it may be. But for me, it was very simple. As soon as I started working and I had no passion for any of it, I thought, I'm not doing this for the next 50 years. I want to go to work and love what I do.
What's your favorite thing about your career? Career, subbing in for the word job.
There are many things. I always say to people, I have a luxury job. I work in a candy store. I get to cover hockey. And for the rest of my career prior to that, I've also got to cover other sports, whether it was the NFL or the MLB. I covered the Boston Red Sox when they won the World Series in Boston. I talked to Tom Brady at Gillette. You know, these are things that, as a girl who at 23 started in her hometown of Brandon, Manitoba at CKX, never dreamed that she would be able to do or have the ability to do. And here I am. So for me, it's just the fact that, one, it's never the same thing every day. That's the beauty about sport, and specifically live event television. And for the majority of my career, I was in the studio. When I came to ESPN, that was a shift. I became a live event person, and I don't think I can ever go back. My favorite thing, especially about hockey, that sheet of ice is cleaned and it's perfection, and we have no idea what story is about to be told on it. And when you have that every time you go in and you get to watch these athletes give everything they have and tell their stories, it's just exciting every time you go to work. And that's what makes my career so great.
Let's get into some hockey talk. Why is the Four Nations face-off significant?
Well, first of all, it's best on best, and we have not seen that for many years. In fact, the last time we saw it, I believe, was the World Cup in 2016 on ESPN. I was the ringside reporter for all 20 games, and it was an incredible event hosted in Toronto, because prior to that, it was the Olympics in 2014 in Sochi, but we haven't seen the NHLers in the Olympics since that time. Thankfully, they're going back. But the Four Nations face-off is best on best. And while the NHL is the best league in the world, you have to understand, if you have not seen best on best international play, as soon as that crest comes on their chest, right, whether it's the Canadian flag or the USA, I am telling you, the elevation of these players, what they are playing for now, is as great as a Stanley Cup. That's how they look at it. It means the world to them to represent each other and to see what the best players in the world can do. So that's why, to me, the Four Nations face-off come February is so exciting, because we're going to get back to that. And you have to remember, when the World Cup happened last time, they had a North American team, which was called the kids team, because they were all like pretty much 23 and under. That was like Nathan McKinnon, Mark Scheifele, Connor McDavid, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They were all such young players that wouldn't have made Team Canada or Team USA at the time, because they were still youthful and there were still those older players that were taking those spots. Now it's their turn. Now it's their turn. So the Four Nations face-off is so exciting. And I'm so excited that ESPN gets to be a part of it in Montreal and Boston. And I hope people realize what they're in for, because it's going to be fantastic hockey.
When you're broadcasting to an audience that spans over many different countries, what are the differences between when you have to have the mindset of, okay, a Canadian audience and an American audience are both listening to this game? What are the differences between that as a broadcaster?
There are differences, Alex. I have covered hockey in Canada. Obviously, I am a Canadian as well. And then there is the USA audience. And we do look at hockey differently. I would say the Canadian audience, because it is so built into the fabric of our culture here, there's a lot of more X and O's talk in certain ways. And I'm actually not the biggest fan of that. I don't think that people care if the power play is operating at 49.2% and it went 3 for 4 tonight. I think they want to know the why. And one of the things that I think we do better in the USA when I've been a part of broadcasts there is that, especially when I'm reporting, I try to explain the why and I try to tell the stories more of the players. And it doesn't mean that Hockey Night doesn't do that. They are the best for a reason. They do it well. It's the way in which ESPN does NFL. That's how Hockey Night does. And MLB. I don't want to disrespect MLB because I know you have affection for it, but they're the best at what they do. That's what Hockey Night is. But I really feel the American audience, we are trying to sell the players more, not so much the game, because people in Canada love the game. No matter what happens, they're watching, right? But in the USA, we're not top dog. We got to sell it. So therefore, we need to tell the stories. And that's something that, as a reporter, and even in the play-by-play role, I'm always dropping in nuggets about these players, because we want to sell them. Because at the end of the day, people aren't remembering the stats. They're remembering the stories.
As someone who's paved a way for a lot of people in this industry, what's one thing you would change about the industry of sports broadcasting?
I believe that we would benefit from having more women in executive positions. Up until this year when Linda Schultz was promoted, I had never had a female boss. I had always had a male boss. And every job I've had, a man has hired me. And trust me, I'm very thankful for them. I've learned so much. But we still are lacking some representation. And I think we can all admit women look at things differently than men do. We have different brains. And I think that perspective needs to be there. And I think there's an empathy and understanding as well. For the play-by-play route, I've given this a lot of thought, because I'm so happy that ESPN took the chance and hired me after I had only called 14 games and won in the National Hockey League when they gave me a chance, right? That is amazing that they were willing to open that door and be in it with me, even though they knew I wasn't the best play-by-play. I was going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes to this day, and I'm still learning the skill because it's such a difficult skill. But I got jumped in. We need to have more grassroots programs. And when I say grassroots, I just mean more opportunities for, women or people who traditionally have not been represented to call at lower levels and be able to earn their way up and escalate. So when they get to the National Hockey League, they're ready for it, because it's a really big jump. It's just like players, right? Coming from junior to the NHL, are you kidding me? It's such a big step. It's the same thing for us. So I'd love to see more doors of opportunities. And what that takes is executives going, okay, let's look around the room. Who's not represented and why? And figure out why they aren't here. And then go and figure out how can we give them opportunities to arrive. That's something that I'd love to see us do a bit more of.
Really incredible. This is my favorite part of any interview I do, Leah. It's the
I'm nervous.
It's 5 quick questions. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm not, but here we go, Alex. We're in this together now, bud. Okay.
When you look at your role models, who's one person that's really stuck out to you that has helped you in your career?
Barbara Walters. I used to watch her and her 10 most interesting, fascinating people every single year. And that woman can look at you and ask with one word the best question: why? And the way she drew people in and the things she was able to pull out for them, oh, that woman had it all.
She was incredible.
Yeah,
She's always one person I've always wanted to meet.
I
Uh,
know.
I know she's incredible to
And
watch
she deserves
and
it.
learn from as well.
Barbara. Yeah, exactly.
If you could host a podcast with one person in your phone, who would you choose?
I would choose my sister. And I know people probably think, well, why would we want to listen to your sister? Well, if you think the Kelsey brothers are engaging, try the Hextall sisters. That's all I got to say about that. She's the funniest, smartest person I know. And she doesn't really have a filter. So I think it'd be good entertainment.
If you weren't broadcasting right now, what would you be doing?
I would be in politics for many different reasons, but the most because I think we need it. And I think we need people to go into politics that don't care about holding the job or the power and are there just to reach across the aisle and do some good, because public servants, they take a lot, but they can also give a lot. And I love politics. So I would definitely be a politician or somehow working within it. So if the DNC needs some help now, give me a call. So yeah.
Number four, what's the best advice you've received from someone at ESPN?
I think one will come from Mike McQuaid, and it's about efficiency with words. When I'm doing play by play, you don't need to describe everything, just simple words. Be efficient in your words. And the other would come from Linda Schultz, and that was about my pacing. I'm a quick talker, as you can tell, because I've been talking pretty quick here. And she would always say to me, "You've got great information, but I got to work too hard because you're going too fast. So slow it down." And I think about those two things
Hmm.
every time that little red light turns on. So those are two really incredible pieces of information that I believe, and this is my fourth season, have made me a better broadcaster over the last few seasons.
And then the last one I want to end on, you mentioned about your family. I have to ask about your family legacy. Obviously, a rich history of your family involved with the sport of hockey. What has that meant to you now going into this career, covering hockey and working in this business to have such a rich family legacy as well?
Alex, it's my way to continue my family's legacy. I was never going to play in the NHL, one, because I don't have the talent to, and second, obviously, because of my gender. But the fact of the matter is that we have three generations, starting with my grandfather, who's in the Hall of Fame. This is his little Hall of Fame ring right here. Two uncles who played, and then my cousin Ron, who obviously tended net. And I have been around this game since I came into this world. And living in Manitoba, especially where my family's from, in a hockey mad province and country, there isn't a moment where I haven't introduced myself since I was young. As soon as they hear Hextall, are you related to A, B, or C? You never know who they're going to say. And that truly means so much to me. So for me, it's about pride in the history that my family has in the game and representing them. And also, I'm so thankful that my family instilled this love of what I truly believe is the greatest sport that we have to offer.
Well, Leah, this has been so much fun. Thanks so much for taking some time today to join the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. It's been a blast.